Have you been my whole afterlife? I've waited eons or more.
I had an idea for recording a video about the computer equipment I used to render the film. Actually, I have to thank Jeff Liu of Killer Bean Forever. He did a great job of his, and I just thought it was something interesting that people watching the project might be interested in. So anyway, here's my setup. Now, what you're actually seeing here is my new office space, having moved recently, and computer is not currently rendering, and it looks something like this. Now this is I'm using a free license of RenderPal. You get three free licenses for 3 different computers at once before you have to start paying for things. There are certain other limitations, but it's actually very effective, and I just happen to have 3 computers. Here's one, here's 2, and here's the third one. So I guess let's start off with a brief story. So, laptop number 1. Now, once upon a time I did actually have 2 computers back in the UK, but I gave them away to my family when I knew I was going to be moving to the US. So I bought this laptop on Tottenham Court Road. It was refurbished and a very good deal. I think the only reason it was actually returned to the shop was because it was actually had an HD DVD drive in it instead of a Blu-ray drive, and at the time I didn't really care, so it was fine, and it's done great. It's a dual core. I had it upgraded to 3 GB of RAM straight out of the shop in order to make sure I never had to worry about RAM again, and it comes with 2 hard drives, and it has a whopping great big 17-inch screen, which has made it very useful as my primary computer for a while at the beginning of the project. And admittedly, though, it does kind of make it so large that it's not the most portable of laptops. When you combine it with the fact that I like to use a Wacom tablet, it can be kind of bulky. Anyway, so at the beginning of 2009, I went and bought myself a proper desktop computer, and I'm going to show you that now. So down here, this big black box, which for the purposes of this video I've taken the sides off, this is probably the most expensive thing that I've had to purchase for the purposes of the film. I also got myself a monitor, as you can see. A lot of other stuff that I've just picked up over the years. I mean, that's a very old keyboard, but I happen to like it, so I continue to use it. So I'm going to go around the back here and show you what this computer is. So in here we have, I believe this is a GeForce 260 or something like that graphics card. It's an i7 dual-threaded quad-core. I think it's about a 2.5 or 2.6, somewhere around that mark, so pretty powerful. And it's got 12 GB of RAM. I originally got 6 because it was quite expensive, and a little while later I got another 6 more, which was even more expensive. Ironically, a year later it had gone up in price. It has a SSD hard drive as the primary hard drive that the programs run off, so that it's super fast, and a terabyte drive for general storage. Up here we've got a quite high-end router, which is very fast Wi-Fi around the apartment, but most of all this stuff here is actually wired up. And then over on the other side here, this is actually not my computer. This is a computer that was lent to me by my good friend Lucas, who rendered his film on it, actually. So this was the workhorse for his film, Pigeon Impossible, and that's a quad-core, not dual-threaded like mine, so it's about half the speed of mine. But when he gave it to me, he only could give me about 1 GB of RAM, because what he'd done was he'd blown up the RAM at the time. So for a while it was quite limited because it only had 1 gig of RAM, but you'd be surprised what you can get done with 1 gig of RAM. Fortunately, my other friend David had 4 gigs of RAM available, which he gave me and donated to the project. So that's in there now, and at some point I got to give that back to Lucas. But that one actually I don't bother plugging into a monitor. I've got a cable that hooks it up to this one if I want it, but most of the time all I need to do is turn it on, and then it adds itself to the render queue. So there's his computer, there's my main computer, and there's my other computer, and they're all currently rendering away. So you can see the resources going there, and below that we've got the job. Now this can be up to 10 different jobs with the limited license. At the moment there's only one going, but it shows you the progress of it right there. And over on the right here are all the frames. You can slice this up in lots of different ways, but essentially what you can see here is that the three computers are rendering these three frames here, and when that one's done it's going to move over to one of these other ones and keep going. All the ones that are done, and all the ones that are pending are still waiting to be done. And that just kind of chugs through there. Now that all of these machines render their frames to one particular location on the network, which just happens to be my main computer. Now one of the things that I thought was interesting about the last month is that I've focused on doing just rendering and lighting and rendering, and the end result is a spike in productivity on our rendering, as you can see over the course of the project. But what's also interesting is that over the course of the month we essentially managed to get about 10% of the movie rendered. Now my goal is to finish the film around here, around December this year to January next year, so this top corner up here. Now the trouble is, at only 10% of the movie I don't think we'd make it by that date, so somewhere along the line we'll probably have to talk to other people about assisting with rendering. It's not super high priority. It's kind of a bit of a mixed bag. I mean, if you look at this trajectory here, it looks like we're going to finish rendering before we finish anything else of the film, but of course that's not going to happen because animation has to finish first. So it's going to stop somewhere around here. Animation is the green line, by the way, moving at a fairly steady rate all the way along here. Anyway, there you go. I just thought I'd give you an outline of the equipment. Not the most exciting thing in the world, but for the geeks out there, I thought they'd appreciate it.